With a sick mother at home, he still stopped to help a disabled stranger. When a black SUV appeared the next day, what the suited man revealed made his whole street gather in amazement. Marcus's phone alarm blared at 4:30 a.m. His hand slapped the screen, and he sat up in the dark, his feet touching the cold floor. The house was quiet except for his mother's labored breathing from the next room. He didn't turn on the lights yet, didn't want to wake her. The kitchen faucet squeaked as he filled the coffee maker. While it brewed, he counted out his mother's morning pills, arranging them in the daily organizer. 7 different medications. The coffee machine gurgled its last drops as he heard his mother coughing. "Mom?" He walked to her door. "You okay?" "I'm fine, baby," she said between coughs. "Just the usual." Marcus flicked on her bedside lamp. His mother's face looked paler than yesterday, dark circles under her eyes deeper. She needed that specialist appointment, but the waiting list was long, and their insurance barely covered the basics. "Here's your morning meds." He helped her sit up, handed her the water glass. "I made coffee. Want some?" She shook her head. "You're going to be late for work." "I got time." He didn't. The warehouse expected him at 6 a.m. sharp. Marcus rushed through his morning routine, pulled on his work clothes, tan cargo pants, white t-shirt, steel-toed boots. He grabbed his lunch from the fridge, sandwich, apple, protein bar. Cheap but filling. Outside, the sky was still dark. His old Honda Civic sat in the driveway, covered in morning dew. As he backed out, Mrs. Thompson from next door peered through her curtains. She always did that when he left early, like she was keeping tabs. Marcus had lived here his whole life, but some neighbors still acted like he was an intruder. The warehouse parking lot was half full when he arrived. 5:50 a.m. He clocked in, headed to the break room for the morning meeting. Cutting it close, Marcus, Steve, his supervisor, said without looking up from his clipboard. "Still got 10 minutes. Marcus poured himself another coffee. Steve cleared his throat. "All right, people, listen up. New delivery protocols today. Corporate wants us double-checking addresses before loading. Too many wrong deliveries last month." Marcus sat in the back, sipping his coffee. He hadn't made a single wrong delivery in his 2 years here. But Steve was talking to everyone like they were new hires. "Anderson, you're with Mike today. Sarah, take the south route." "Marcus." Steve paused. "You're solo on the east side. Lot of heavy furniture." "Of course." They always gave him the heaviest loads. Marcus nodded, kept his face neutral. His first delivery was a dining room set. He checked the address 3 times, even though he knew the protocol by heart. The truck's radio crackled with dispatcher updates as he navigated morning traffic. His phone buzzed. Hospital number. His stomach tightened. "Hello, Mr. Williams? This is Dr. Carter's office. Your mother missed her last appointment." "That was yesterday?" Marcus pulled over, grabbed his delivery schedule. "I thought it was next week. We need to reschedule, but the next opening isn't until... Just give me the date. I'll make it work." He wrote down the new appointment. 3 weeks away. His mother's cough was getting worse, but they had no choice. Back at the warehouse between deliveries, Marcus loaded his next batch. Bill, one of the newer guys, watched from the loading dock. "Need some help?" Marcus asked, lifting a box marked fragile. Bill shook his head. "I got my own route." But he kept watching, like he was making sure Marcus didn't take anything he wasn't supposed to. Marcus had dealt with guys like Bill before. Best to ignore them. The afternoon sun beat down as he finished his second-to-last delivery. His t-shirt was soaked with sweat. One more stop, then home to check on his mother. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Steve. "Yeah, got one more for you. Elderly customer needs help with some boxes. It's on your way back." Marcus checked his watch. 5:45 p.m. His shift ended at 6. "It's just boxes," Steve said. "Shouldn't take long." Marcus thought about saying no. Thought about his mother waiting at home. But he also thought about his last performance review. "Needs to be more of a team player. Send me the address," he said. He turned the truck around, headed to his final delivery. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the suburban streets. One more job, then home. The last delivery would change everything. But Marcus didn't know that yet. The GPS led Marcus down a quiet residential street lined with well-maintained houses. 1247 Oak Lane. The address belonged to a single-story home with a neat garden and a no soliciting sign by the door. The garage door was open, and that's where Marcus spotted him. An elderly white man struggled with a stack of boxes on a metal cart. His movements were stiff, unbalanced. Marcus watched through the truck's windshield as the man's prosthetic leg caught on the garage floor's lip, making him stumble. Marcus's hand hovered over the door handle. He'd learned to be careful in neighborhoods like this. Last month, someone had called the police on him during a legitimate delivery, claiming he was suspicious. The paperwork and Steve's lectures weren't worth it. The old man stumbled again. A box tumbled from his cart. Damn it all, the man's voice carried across the driveway. Marcus checked his watch. 5:55 p.m. His mother would be expecting him. But that prosthetic leg looked like it was giving the old man real trouble. He stepped out of the truck. "Sir?" Marcus kept his voice steady, professional. "I'm from Williams Moving Company. Need some help with those?" The old man straightened up, squinting in the fading light. "Oh, thank goodness. I was just about to call the company back. Name's Charles." He extended his hand. Marcus shook it, noting the firm grip despite the man's age. Up close, Charles looked to be in his 70s, wearing khaki shorts that didn't hide his prosthetic left leg and a navy polo shirt with sweat stains under the arms. "I'm Marcus." "What are we moving?" "Just clearing out some old files. Decades of paperwork." Charles gestured at the boxes. "Thought I could handle it myself, but this leg's not cooperating today." Marcus grabbed the fallen box, checked its weight. Heavy, filled with papers. "Where do you want them?" "There's a donation truck coming tomorrow. Need everything by the curb." Charles adjusted his stance. "Sorry about the timing. Your dispatcher said you'd be here an hour ago. Got held up on other deliveries." Marcus started moving boxes. "Mind if I ask about the leg?" Charles chuckled. "Diabetes. Lost it 2 years ago. Still getting used to this contraption." They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes. Marcus established a rhythm, 2 boxes at a time, stacking them neatly by the curb. The work was straightforward, but he felt eyes on him. Across the street, a man in a dark suit stood next to a black SUV, phone in hand. Probably another nervous neighbor. Marcus kept working. "You're good at this," Charles said, watching Marcus organize the boxes. "How long you been moving?" 2 years at Williams, 3 before that at another company. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "It's honest work. Family business?" "No, sir. Just me and my mom." "Jeez." Marcus caught himself. Why was he telling this stranger about his life? "She's waiting for me at home." "Actually," Charles nodded slowly. "Don't let me keep you then. Just a few more boxes." As they moved the last stack, Charles stumbled again. Marcus caught his arm, steadied him. "Whoa, careful there." "Much obliged." Charles gripped Marcus's shoulder. "You know, most people would have just dropped off their delivery and left." Marcus shrugged. "Didn't feel right, seeing you struggle, even though your shift's probably over. We all need help sometimes." The man in the suit was still watching. He'd moved closer, pretending to talk on his phone. Marcus started walking back to his truck. "Wait," Charles called. "Let me give you something for your trouble." "No need, sir. It's part of the job." "At 6:15 p.m.? Charles smiled. "I don't think so. Please let me." "Really, it's fine." Marcus climbed into his truck. "Just be careful with that leg, Mr. Charles." As he pulled away, Marcus glanced in his rearview mirror. Charles stood in his driveway, watching the truck leave. The man in the suit had moved to stand beside him. They appeared to be talking. Marcus's phone buzzed. His mother. "Hey, Mom. Sorry I'm late. Where are you?" "Your dinner's getting cold. Just finished the last delivery. Had to help an old guy with some boxes. Always helping everyone else." She coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "Meanwhile, your mother's here alone. I'm on my way. 15 minutes tops. Need anything from the store? Just get home safe, baby." Marcus ended the call, turned up the radio. The sun had set completely now, street lights casting yellow pools on the pavement. He didn't notice the black SUV pulling out behind his truck, following at a discreet distance. His mind was already home, thinking about his mother's cough, the missed doctor's appointment, bills piling up on the kitchen table. He didn't know that his simple act of kindness had set something much bigger in motion. The next morning would change everything. Marcus woke before his alarm the next morning. His mother's coughing had started at 3 a.m., and sleep never really returned. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills while the coffee brewed. Medical statements, utilities, credit card, minimum payments circled in red. The morning light crept through the kitchen window. His mother's coughing had finally settled. He arranged her pills in the daily organizer, filled a glass of water, and checked the clock. 5:15 a.m. Still early. A car engine rumbled outside. Marcus froze, pills in hand. Nobody on their street started their day this early except him. The engine didn't shut off, just idled. He moved to the living room window, pulled back the curtain just enough to peek out. A black SUV sat at the curb in front of his house. The same one from yesterday. His heart kicked against his ribs. "Marcus?" His mother called from her room. "Someone out there?" "It's nothing, Mom. Just the neighbors." He let the curtain fall back. The SUV's engine cut off. A car door opened and closed. Mrs. Thompson's porch light flicked on next door. Marcus saw her silhouette in her window, probably already on the phone reporting suspicious activity. Heavy footsteps on the walkway. Then a knock. Marcus stood in the hallway, his mind racing. He hadn't done anything wrong. The delivery was legitimate. Charles had seemed fine when he left. Another knock, firmer this time. "Marcus?" His mother's voice carried worry. "Who is it?" "I'll handle it, Mom." He approached the door, each step measured. Through the peephole, he saw the man in the suit from yesterday. Tall, clean-cut, holding a leather briefcase. Marcus's hand rested on the doorknob. He could pretend they weren't home, but the man had obviously seen movement through the windows. The man knocked again. "Mr. Williams? My name is Thomas Jensen. I'm here on behalf of the Harrison Foundation. May I speak with you?" Foundation? Marcus had expected police, or maybe a lawyer with a complaint. He opened the door, keeping the security chain latched. "What's this about?" "Good morning, Mr. Williams." Jensen's smile looked practiced but genuine. "I apologize for the early hour, but I thought it best to catch you before work. May I come in? I have a proposition that could benefit you and your mother." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "How do you know about my mother?" "From Charles Patterson, the gentleman you helped yesterday." Jensen reached into his jacket, produced a business card. "I represent his charitable foundation." Marcus took the card through the gap. "Harrison Foundation for Educational Opportunity. Thomas Jensen, Executive Director. The man I helped, Charles, is one of Philadelphia's most successful retired businessmen, and now a dedicated philanthropist." More coughing from his mother's room. Marcus glanced back down the hallway. "Mr. Williams," Jensen lowered his voice, "I understand your hesitation, but I'm here to offer an opportunity, not create problems. May I please come in? Just 5 minutes of your time." Mrs. Thompson was still watching from next door. Other neighbors, lights were coming on. Soon the whole street would be wondering why his suit was at Marcus Williams' door at dawn. Marcus closed the door, unlatched the chain, and reopened it. 5 minutes. Jensen stepped inside, waited for Marcus to lead the way. The kitchen was the only place to sit and talk, bills still scattered across the table. Marcus quickly gathered them into a pile. "Coffee," he offered, more from ingrained politeness than hospitality. "No, thank you." Jensen sat, placed his briefcase on the table. "Mr. Williams, I'll be direct. Charles Patterson spends his retirement testing people's character. Yesterday was a test, and you passed." Marcus sat across from him. "A test?" Charles could have moved those boxes himself. "The prosthetic leg is real, but it doesn't impair him as much as he let on. He wanted to see how you'd react to someone needing help after hours, with no expectation of reward. So it was all fake?" Heat rose in Marcus's neck. The situation was constructed. Your response was genuine. Jensen opened his briefcase. "That's what interested us." He pulled out a folder, placed it on the table. Inside were papers with the Harrison Foundation letterhead and what looked like college brochures. The Harrison Foundation offers full scholarships to individuals who demonstrate exceptional character through their actions. Room, board, tuition, books, everything paid for. Jensen spread the papers out. "We'd like to offer you that opportunity." Marcus stared at the documents. Full scholarship. The words seemed to float off the page. "Baby?" His mother appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her robe. "What's going on?" Jensen stood. "Mrs. Williams? I'm Thomas Jensen. I was just explaining to your son that he's been selected for a scholarship opportunity. She shuffled to the table, looked at the papers, then at Marcus. What did you do? Helped an old man with some boxes, Marcus said quietly. There is one condition, Jensen interjected. Recipients must maintain their current employment while attending college. We believe in building work ethic alongside education. It's challenging, but not impossible. Marcus picked up one of the brochures. Local universities. Programs in business, engineering, healthcare. Why me? He looked at Jensen. Really? Because when presented with a choice between going home on time and helping someone in need, you chose to help. No cameras, no audience, no reward promised. Just basic human kindness. Jensen closed his briefcase. That's exactly the kind of person our foundation wants to support. More coughing from his mother. She gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. I can't, Marcus said. My mother needs. The scholarship includes a healthcare stipend for immediate family members. Jensen produced another document. We understand that education doesn't happen in isolation. Family obligations don't disappear just because you're in school. Marcus's mother touched his shoulder. Her hand trembled. Take it, she whispered. Jensen stood. I'll leave these materials with you. Review them with your mother. Call me when you've made a decision. He headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mr. Williams? Charles asked me to tell you something. What's that? Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Just like you proved yesterday. After Jensen left, Marcus and his mother sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by scholarship papers and brochures. Outside, the black SUV pulled away. Mrs. Thompson's porch light finally went off. Mom, Marcus started. Don't you dare say no. She gripped his hand. Don't you dare let me be the reason you pass this up. Marcus looked at the papers again, his vision blurring. Help from unexpected places. The sun had fully risen now, painting the kitchen in soft morning light. His phone buzzed. Steve from the warehouse, probably wondering where he was. Everything was about to change, and this time Marcus knew it. The warehouse break room fell silent when Marcus walked in at 7:30 a.m. Steve looked up from his clipboard, mouth already open to reprimand him. I know I'm late, Marcus said before Steve could start. Need to talk to you. Private. Steve's office was barely bigger than a closet, with just enough room for a desk and 2 chairs. Marcus sat, handed over the foundation letter. Educational opportunity? Steve raised an eyebrow. This why you're late? Guy showed up at my house this morning. From yesterday's last delivery. Marcus leaned forward. I need to know if I can adjust my schedule. Maybe move to afternoon shifts when classes start. Steve read the letter again. Full ride? He whistled. That's something. But Marcus, we're short-staffed as is. Can't have you ducking out whenever there's a class. I'll make up the hours. Weekends, holidays, whatever it takes. Your performance is already slipping. The missed deliveries. 1 missed delivery. Last month. Because my mother was in the ER. Steve set the letter down. That's my point. You got a lot on your plate already. College? That's a whole other level of commitment. Marcus's phone buzzed. Dr. Carter's office again. He ignored it. I need this, Steve. And I need this job. There's got to be a way to make both work. Steve rubbed his face. Let me think about it. Talk to corporate. No promises. Outside the office, Bill and 2 other workers quickly looked away, pretending they hadn't been trying to listen. Marcus's next stop was the foundation office, housed in a gleaming downtown building. The security guard eyed him suspiciously until Jensen came down to escort him up. I'm glad you came, Jensen said in the elevator. Charles is here. He'd like to speak with you. The elevator opened directly into a plush office suite, and there was Charles, dressed in an expensive suit instead of the polo shirt and shorts, prosthetic leg now barely noticeable under tailored pants. Marcus. Charles smiled, extending his hand. No boxes to move today. You tricked me? The words came out before Marcus could stop them. I did. Charles gestured to a chair. Want to know why? Marcus sat. Charles took the chair across from him, moving with none of the difficulty he'd shown yesterday. I built my business from nothing, Charles said. Started as a warehouse worker, like you. Learned pretty quick that character matters more than credentials. That's why I test people. See who they really are when they think no one's watching. By pretending to be helpless, by presenting an opportunity to show kindness. Most people drive right by, check their phones, pretend not to notice. Charles leaned forward. You stopped, helped, asked for nothing in return, even refused payment. I was raised right. You were. How's your mother? Marcus stiffened. What do you know about my mother? Hospital bills, missed appointments, insurance hassles. Charles nodded at Jensen, who produced another folder. The foundation can help with all that, but you have to commit to the program. Marcus opened the folder. Medical insurance papers, specialist referrals, coverage for treatments their current insurance denied. Why? His voice cracked. Why all this for moving some boxes? Because kindness is rare. Real kindness, without agenda or audience. Charles stood, moved to the window. I have more money than I can spend. Might as well invest it in people worth investing in. Jensen cleared his throat. We should discuss the specifics. Class schedules, work arrangements, financial details. The next hour was a blur of paperwork and planning. Class options, study requirements, work hour calculations. His head spun with possibilities and obligations. One more thing, Charles said as they finished. Come with me. They took the elevator to the parking garage. A campus tour van waited. Thought you might want to see where you'll be studying. The university sprawled across manicured grounds. Students hustled between buildings, carrying backpacks and laptops. Marcus pressed his face to the van window, trying to imagine himself among them. Then his phone rang. His mother's ringtone. I need to. Take it, Charles said. Marcus stepped away from the group. Mom? You okay? Where are you? The hospital called. Said they could squeeze me in today for tests, but she broke into coughing. Marcus looked at the university buildings, then at Charles and Jensen waiting by the van. Future versus present. Dreams versus reality. Mr. Williams? A tour guide approached. We're ready to show you the engineering department. His mother's coughing continued through the phone. I have to go, Marcus said. My mother is being taken care of, Jensen interrupted, holding up his phone. I've arranged transport to get her to the hospital. The Foundation's medical team will meet her there. Marcus stared at him. Just like that? Just like that? Charles put a hand on his shoulder. The point of this program isn't to make you choose between education and family. It's to give you the support to handle both. The tour guide waited patiently. His mother's coughing had subsided. Mom? Marcus spoke into the phone. A car's coming to get you. Foundation doctors. Best ones. He took a deep breath. And Mom? I'm at the university. I'm taking the scholarship. He could hear her crying softly. About time you let somebody help you for a change. The tour resumed. Laboratories, lecture halls, computer labs. With each stop, the reality of what was happening sank in deeper. Back in the parking lot, Charles handed him a business card. My personal number. Call anytime. Questions, problems, anything. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by succeeding. Charles smiled. And Marcus? The Foundation could use someone to help review future candidates. Someone who knows what real character looks like. Think about it. The sun was setting by the time Marcus got home. His mother was back from the hospital. New prescriptions on the kitchen counter, a specialist appointment scheduled for next week. They're good doctors, she said. Real good? Marcus sat at the kitchen table, spread out the university materials. Course catalogs. Schedule options. A future he'd never dared imagine. His phone buzzed. Steve from the warehouse. Corporate-approved split shifts. Don't make me regret this. Everything was falling into place. So, why did his stomach feel tight with anxiety? Because nothing good comes easy, he thought. And tomorrow would prove him right. The prep class was already full when Marcus slipped in 10 minutes late. 30 students looked up as he eased into the only empty seat, front row center. His work boots squeaked on the polished floor. Name? The instructor paused her writing on the whiteboard. Marcus Williams. The Foundation student. She checked her roster. Welcome. We're reviewing calculus fundamentals. Marcus pulled out his notebook. Brand new like everything else in his backpack. The girl next to him wrinkled her nose, probably smelling the warehouse dust on his clothes. He hadn't had time to change after his morning shift. Now, who can solve this equation? The instructor pointed to a complex problem. Hands shot up around him. Marcus stared at the numbers, his last math class 4 years ago suddenly feeling very far away. His phone vibrated. Text from Steve. Truck 7 broke down. Need you back early. Can't, he texted back. In class. Emergency. Nobody else available. Marcus's jaw clenched. Day 3 of prep classes, and already the juggling act was failing. Mr. Williams? The instructor stood over his desk. Phone away, please. This material will be on the placement exam. He pocketed the phone. Steve would have to figure it out himself. The next 2 hours were a blur of formulas and functions. Marcus's hand cramped from taking notes, trying to capture everything. Around him, other students seemed relaxed, like this was all review. Hey, the girl next to him whispered as they packed up. I'm Sarah. Study group meets at the library tonight. You should come. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed again. His mother. Marcus? Her voice was tight with pain. I fell. In the bathroom. He was already moving, pushing past other students. Did you hit your head? Are you bleeding? No, just can't get up. The new medicine makes me dizzy. I'm coming. Don't move. Outside. Rain had started falling. Marcus sprinted to his car, nearly colliding with Sarah. Study group? She called after him. Can't. Family emergency. He found his mother on the bathroom floor, pale but conscious. Together, they managed to get her back to bed. I'm sorry, she kept saying. You're missing class because of me. Classes don't matter if you're hurt. He checked her pupils, like the hospital nurses had taught him. Should I call Dr. Carter? No. Just the dizziness. It'll pass. His phone buzzed. Steve again. Where are you? Delivery schedule backing up. Marcus looked at his mother, then his phone, then his abandoned backpack full of prep class materials. Everything pulling him in different directions. Go, his mother said softly. I'm fine now. Mom, you can't lose this job. I'll call Mrs. Thompson if I need anything. The same Mrs. Thompson who watched him like a criminal every morning. But he had no choice. The warehouse was chaos when he arrived. 2 trucks down, deliveries piling up. Steve's face was red with stress. About time, he snapped. Get truck 12 loaded. Full route. Marcus worked through lunch, trying to make up for lost time. His prep class notes sat unread in his car. Numbers and formulas already fading from memory. At 3, his phone buzzed. Jensen. Mr. Williams, your instructor called. Said you left class suddenly. My mother fell. Had to help her. A pause. The foundation can arrange home health care? No. Marcus lifted another box. She doesn't need a stranger. She needs her son. You also need to pass the placement exams. Perhaps we should reconsider. I'll figure it out. He ended the call, loaded another box. His back ached. His head throbbed with half-understood calculus. Sarah texted next, study group at 7. Last chance. Marcus looked at his delivery schedule. 3 more hours at least. Then home to check on his mother. Cook dinner. Review bills. When was he supposed to study? A box slipped from his grip, crashed to the ground. Fragile stickers staring up at him. That's coming out of your pay. Steve called from across the warehouse. Marcus sat on a stack of pallets, head in his hands. The scholarship was supposed to make things better, not pull his life apart at the seams. His phone buzzed again. Charles this time. How's it going, son? Marcus almost laughed. You really want to know? That's why I called. The whole story spilled out. The class. His mother's fall. The warehouse chaos. The study group he couldn't attend. Charles listened quietly. Finally, come to my office. Tomorrow morning. I've got deliveries. I'll handle, Steve. Just come. Marcus looked around the warehouse. At the mountain of boxes waiting to be delivered. At his prep class notes visible through his car window. At his phone showing 3 missed calls from the study group. Everything was falling apart. And it wasn't even the end of the first week. Okay, he said. Tomorrow morning. He didn't know it yet, but that meeting would either save him or break him completely. The hospital corridors felt colder at midnight. Marcus sat in the emergency room, his prep class textbook open but unread on his lap. His mother's coughing echoed from behind the curtain where doctors were examining her. Mr. Williams? A young doctor emerged. We need to keep her overnight. The new medication caused an adverse reaction. Marcus closed his book, but the foundation doctors prescribed it. Sometimes medications interact unexpectedly. We'll need to adjust her treatment plan. Through the curtain gap, Marcus watched his mother arguing with a nurse about taking more tests. Her hospital gown made her look smaller, more fragile. His phone vibrated. Charles, meeting still on for 8 a.m.? Marcus typed back, at hospital with mom. Can't make it. The response came quickly. Which hospital? Before he could reply, the doctor returned with admission papers, insurance forms, medical history questionnaires. Marcus checked his watch. 1 a.m. His warehouse shift started at 6. Son, his mother called weakly. Go home. Get some sleep. I'm not leaving you here. You have work. And that meeting doesn't matter. He started filling out forms at 3 a.m. A nurse brought him coffee. At 4 a.m., his mother finally slept, the new medication dripping steadily through her fore. At 5 a.m., Marcus splashed water on his face in the hospital bathroom, changed into his work clothes from his gym bag. His phone had 6 missed calls from Steve. The warehouse was already bustling when he arrived, 30 minutes late. Steve intercepted him at the time clock. Where the hell were you yesterday afternoon? 3 deliveries got bumped. Hospital. My mother. Always your mother. Steve's face reddened. Look, Marcus, you're a good worker. But this scholarship thing? It's not working. Maybe it's time to. Mr. Davidson? A voice cut through the warehouse noise. Charles stood in the loading dock doorway, leaning on a cane he didn't actually need. Steve's eyes widened. Mr. Patterson? What are you? Need to borrow Marcus for the morning? Charles smiled, but his eyes were steel. Foundation business. But the deliveries can wait. Charles gestured to Marcus. Shall we? The black SUV waited outside. Jensen sat in the driver's seat, looking crisp despite the early hour. Marcus slumped in the back, exhaustion hitting him like a wave. How's your mother? Charles asked as they pulled away. Bad reaction to the new meds. They're keeping her for observation. I know. I spoke to her doctor an hour ago. Charles turned to face him. Marcus, this isn't working. Marcus's stomach dropped. I could do better. Just need time to. Stop. Charles held up a hand. Let me finish. This isn't working because we set you up to fail. What? We gave you opportunity without proper support. Expected you to transform your life overnight. Charles shook his head. My mistake. Time to fix it. The SUV pulled up to the foundation building. In the lobby, a group of people waited with laptops and folders. Your new support team, Charles explained. Tutors, healthcare coordinators, schedule managers. A woman stepped forward. I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I'll be managing your mother's care personally. We've already begun coordinating with the hospital. A younger man spoke next. James Chun, academic support. I've reviewed your prep class materials. We'll create a study schedule that actually works with your life. Person after person, each presenting solutions to the problems tearing Marcus apart. Last was a familiar face. Sarah? Marcus blinked at the girl from his prep class. I'm not just a student, she smiled. I'm a foundation mentor. Been through the program myself. My mom had cancer during my first year. I know what you're juggling. Marcus looked at them all, then at Charles. Why? Why go to all this trouble for me? Because you've earned it. Not just by helping an old man with boxes, but by showing determination despite impossible odds. Charles nodded to Jensen, who handed Marcus a new folder. Now about your warehouse job. Please, Marcus started. I need that job. The scholarship requires meaningful employment. Doesn't have to be lifting boxes. Charles opened the folder. How do you like to join the Foundation's operations team? Same hours, better pay, and most importantly, a schedule that works with your classes. Marcus stared at the job offer. Operations assistant. Benefits. Flexible hours. His phone buzzed. The hospital. Take it, Charles said softly. Marcus answered. His mother's voice was stronger. Baby? The new doctor? Dr. Rodriguez? She's amazing. Says they got a whole new treatment plan. Relief hit him so hard his knees weakened. Sarah stepped forward, steadied his elbow. One more thing, Charles said when Marcus ended the call. There's an apartment available in the building next door. 2-bedroom, ground floor. No stairs for your mother to worry about. Foundation housing, so rent's covered by your scholarship. It was too much. Everything he needed, appearing all at once. Marcus sank into a chair, overwhelmed. Why do I feel like I don't deserve all this? Sarah sat next to him. Because you're used to doing everything alone. Hardest part of this program? Learning to accept help. Charles nodded to the team, and they dispersed, leaving Marcus with his new employment contract. Son, Charles said, remember when you stopped to help me? You saw someone struggling and didn't hesitate. Now it's your turn to let others help you. Marcus picked up the pen, signed his name. His vision blurred, and he didn't try to hide it. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet. Charles smiled. The real work starts tomorrow. Think you're ready? Marcus thought of his mother, finally getting proper care. The apartment where she wouldn't have to struggle with stairs. A job that wouldn't break his back. A whole team of people invested in his success. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. His phone buzzed one last time. Steve, where are you? Marcus typed his response, moving on to better things. Thank you for everything. Outside the foundation building, the morning sun had burned away the last traces of dawn. A new day, a new start. And this time, he wasn't facing it alone. The morning routine looked different now. Marcus woke at 6 a.m. in the new apartment, sunlight streaming through windows that actually sealed properly. No drafts, no leaky faucets, just clean, functional space. His mother's door was open. She sat in her adjustable bed, another foundation provision, working through morning exercises with her tablet propped up, following Dr. Rodriguez's recorded instructions. Morning, baby, she called out. Coffee's already made. The programmable coffee maker was still a luxury he was getting used to, like the dishwasher and the washer-dryer unit, and the elevator that meant his mother could go outside whenever she wanted. How's the new medication? He poured coffee into his travel mug. Better. No dizziness. She completed another stretch. You're going to be late for your meeting. The foundation offices were a 3-minute walk away. His new desk faced windows overlooking the city. The nameplate read Marcus Williams, Operations Assistant. Jensen was waiting at Marcus's desk. Ready for your first client meeting? These people trusted me with actual responsibility already. You'd be surprised how many skills transfer from warehouse work. Organization, problem solving, customer service. They walked to the conference room. Through the glass, Marcus saw a nervous-looking young man in a worn suit, clutching a folder. Foundation candidate? Marcus asked. Jensen nodded. Charles spotted him helping elderly customers at his grocery store job. No expectation of reward. Sound familiar? The interview went smoothly. Marcus recognized the look in the candidate's eyes, hope mixed with disbelief. The same look he'd had 2 months ago. His phone buzzed during lunch. Sarah, study group tonight? Can't. Prep for tomorrow's placement exam. That IS the study group, dummy. My place. 7 p.m. I'm making tacos. His new schedule actually allowed for study groups now. Work 9 to 5. Classes scheduled around foundation duties. Tutoring built into his day. A support system he was finally learning to use. The placement exam loomed tomorrow. 2 months of prep classes, practice tests, and late-night study sessions led to this. Pass, and he'd start real college classes next semester. Fail? No. Failing wasn't an option. His mother called as he walked home. Don't forget your dinner. Got study group. Sarah's making tacos. Good. You need friends your age. She paused. Baby, I'm proud of you. Marcus swallowed hard. Just doing what needs doing. No. You're doing what you deserve. Took you long enough to see it. Sarah's apartment was full of other foundation students when he arrived. Textbooks and laptops competed with taco fixings for table space. Marcus. Sarah waved him over. We're reviewing calculus. Your favorite. The numbers came easier now. James, his tutor, had broken down the concepts, rebuilt Marcus's math foundation from scratch. Still challenging, but no longer impossible. His phone buzzed. Charles, ready for tomorrow? As I'll ever be. You've got this. Whole team behind you. The whole team. His mother's doctors. His tutors. His fellow students. The foundation staff. A network of support he never dreamed he'd have. Last problem set. Sarah announced at midnight. Who's solving it? Marcus raised his hand, walked to her whiteboard. The equation looked complex, but he saw the pattern now. Step by step, like loading a truck. Everything in its proper order. The room erupted in cheers when he reached the solution. Told you, Sarah grinned. You're ready? The exam room felt massive the next morning. Hundreds of students typing on computers, each fighting for their future. Marcus logged in, saw the first question appear. Deep breath. He could do this. Everything he needed was in his head. All those early mornings and late nights. All that support and preparation. The questions flowed by. Math, science, reading comprehension. His fingers moved steadily over the keyboard. Mind clear despite the pressure. 3 hours later, he clicked Submit. The screen paused. Calculated. Then, congratulations. You have qualified for full admission. Marcus stared at the words. Read them again. Again. His vision blurred. He almost ran to the foundation offices. The team waited with Charles. Well? Jensen asked. Marcus showed them his phone, the screenshot of his results. The room exploded in celebration. Never doubted you, Charles said quietly. Couldn't have done it alone. That's the point, son. Nobody should have to. His mother was waiting in their apartment, clutching her tablet. Dr. Rodriguez had helped her set up the exam notification system. My college boy, she whispered, hugging him tight. That night, Marcus stood at his window, looking at the city lights. His new work clothes hung pressed for tomorrow. His college acceptance letter sat on his desk. His mother slept peacefully in her comfortable bed. 2 months ago, he'd been breaking his back in a warehouse, drowning in bills, watching his mother suffer. Now, his phone buzzed. A text from Steve, his old boss. Heard you passed your exam. Good job, kid. Marcus smiled. Type back, thanks. Hope Truck 7 is running better. Everything had changed, but the biggest changes were still to come. Marcus's first day as a foundation operations manager started differently than his warehouse days. Suit and tie instead of cargo pants. Leather briefcase instead of work gloves. But some habit stayed. He still arrived early, coffee in hand. Morning, Mr. Williams, the security guard nodded. They'd come a long way from the suspicious looks of 6 months ago. His new office had a view. Not a corner office, but enough to see the sunrise over the city. A stack of files waited on his desk. New candidates for the foundation program. Jensen appeared in his doorway. Ready for your first official review meeting? The conference room filled with familiar faces. Dr. Rodriguez, updating them on medical support programs. James Chun, discussing academic progress rates. Sarah, now heading the mentorship program. And Charles, watching it all with quiet satisfaction. Marcus, Charles gestured to the screen. Your presentation? Marcus stood, adjusted his tie. 6 months of operations assistant work had prepared him for this. He knew the foundation systems now, understood how all the pieces fit together. We've identified 3 new candidates. He began, pulling up their files. First, a nurse's aide working double shifts to support her siblings. Second, a mechanic who fixes cars for elderly customers at cost. Third, a grocery store worker who, his phone buzzed. His mother's medical alert. His heart stopped, but the message read, all vital signs normal. Daily check-in complete. He relaxed. The new monitoring system worked. No more constant worry. Marcus? Charles prompted gently. Sorry. He refocused on the presentation. As I was saying, the meeting ran smoothly. His recommendations were approved. 3 more lives about to change, just like his had. After the meeting, Charles lingered. Walk with me. They took the elevator to the ground floor, stepped out into the morning sun. Across the street, a moving truck was unloading at the foundation housing complex. That's your first candidate. Charles nodded toward a young woman directing the movers. The nurse's aide. Marcus watched her fuss over a box marked fragile. Remembered his own moving day, how surreal it had felt. She'll need guidance, Charles continued. Someone who understands what she's going through. I can help with that. Good. Because that's your new role. Director of Mentorship Operations. Marcus turned to him. What? Sarah's taking over outreach programs. We need someone to run mentorship. Someone who remembers what it's like on both sides of this program. A promotion. Already. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Charles held up a hand. Before you say you're not ready, you've been ready. The warehouse taught you logistics. Your mother taught you compassion. The foundation taught you administration. Perfect combination. Across the street, the young woman was thanking the movers, her hands shaking slightly as she signed the papers. Just like his had. Okay, Marcus said. When do I start? Already did. Meeting in 10 minutes. Your mother's doctor has some ideas about expanding our medical support programs. Back in his office, Marcus called his mother. They promoted me, he said. Of course they did. He could hear her smile. You're finally where you belong. Never thought I'd end up in an office. Wearing a tie. I did. She paused. Your father would be proud. Marcus touched the photo on his desk, his father in his army uniform, before the accident. Before everything changed. He's the one who taught me to help people, Marcus said softly. And now you get to do it every day. His computer chimed. New email from the college, his business administration grades for the semester. All A's. Sarah burst into his office. Did you see? Top of the class. Shouldn't you be organizing outreach programs? Please. I can multitask. She perched on his desk. Celebration dinner tonight. Whole team's coming. No excuses. His phone buzzed. Text from the nurse's aide candidate. Mr. Williams? The apartment, it's too much. I can't accept. Go. Sarah nodded at his phone. She needs to hear it from someone who's been there. Marcus grabbed his jacket, headed across the street. The young woman paced in her new living room, surrounded by boxes. I don't deserve all this, she said when she saw him. Funny, he smiled. I said the same thing once. He spent an hour with her, explaining everything. The support systems, the expectations. The overwhelming feeling that it couldn't be real. Why me? She asked finally. Because you help people without being asked. Without expecting anything back. He gestured at the apartment. Now it's your turn to accept help. Back in his office, Marcus updated her file. Status, adapting. Support level, full engagement. Notes, shows exceptional promise. Charles appeared in his doorway. How's our newest family member? Scared. Overwhelmed. Grateful. Marcus looked up, just like I was. And now look at you. Office. Tie. Top of your class. About that. Marcus straightened. I've been thinking about grad school. Charles grinned. Already got the paperwork started. The day ended with dinner at an upscale restaurant. The whole team raised glasses to Sarah's promotion, to Marcus's grades, to new beginnings. Marcus's phone buzzed one last time. His mother, don't stay out too late. Proud of you, baby. He looked around the table. His colleagues, his friends, his support system, his future. Everything okay? Sarah asked. Marcus smiled. Better than okay. The circle was complete. And tomorrow it would start again with someone new. 1 year later, the Foundation's annual gala filled the hotel ballroom with success stories. Marcus stood at the podium, adjusting his new cufflinks, a gift from his mother for completing his first year as director of mentorship operations. When I started this journey, he addressed the crowd, I was just a warehouse worker who stopped to help an old man with some boxes. A gentle laugh rippled through the audience. Charles, seated at the front table, smiled and tapped his now unnecessary cane. Today, we celebrate 12 new graduates from our program, 28 new candidates accepted, and a 100% retention rate in our mentorship initiative. Applause filled the room. Marcus caught his mother's eye at her table. No wheelchair tonight. The new treatments had worked wonders. She sat straight and proud in her evening gown, Dr. Rodriguez beside her. But numbers don't tell the real story, Marcus continued. The real story is Maria, our nurse who just finished her first semester of medical school. Anthony, who turned his mechanical skills into an engineering degree. Sarah, who? The ballroom doors opened. A young man in a hotel uniform hurried to help an elderly woman who'd stumbled with her walker. Without being asked, without hesitation, Marcus paused, watched, saw Jensen already making notes. That, Marcus pointed to the scene, is what we're really about. Those moments when people choose kindness without expecting reward. After his speech, Marcus worked the room, shaking hands, sharing stories. His new role came naturally now, part mentor, part administrator, part friend. Mr. Williams? A server approached, the same one who'd helped the elderly woman. Someone asked to speak with you. In the lobby, the young man shifted nervously. Sir, I'm sorry to bother you, but that lady, she said you might be able to help. I've been trying to take classes at community college, but with my mom's medical bills. What's your name? David, sir. Marcus pulled out his business card. Come see me Monday morning, David. Bring your transcripts. The young man's eyes widened. Really? Just like that? Just like that? Marcus smiled. Sometimes help comes when you least expect it. Back inside, Charles waved him over. Saw you talking to the server, Charles said. Reminds me of someone. You mean a warehouse worker who stopped to help an old man? They shared a knowing look. The circle continuing. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Baby, come to the garden terrace. Need to show you something. He found her by the fountain, holding a letter. Your father's old army buddy found this, she said, handing it to him. Written the week before the accident. Marcus unfolded the yellowed paper. His father's handwriting. My son's growing so fast. Teaching him what matters. Not money or status, but how you treat people. Today we helped Mrs. Johnson with her groceries. Marcus didn't hesitate, just started carrying bags. That's my boy. That's my legacy. Marcus's vision blurred. A year of professional speeches, and now he couldn't find words. His mother squeezed his hand. He was right. Look at your legacy now. Inside, the gala continued. Sarah was announcing next year's outreach goals. Jensen was discreetly interviewing David the server. Dr. Rodriguez was explaining their medical program to new donors. Marcus's phone buzzed again. A mentor group chat. Maria, first surgery rotation tomorrow. Anthony, killed my engineering finals. New messages from other lives changed, other dreams achieved. Charles joined them on the terrace. Taking a break from your admirers? Reading something from my father. Marcus handed him the letter. Charles read it slowly. Apple doesn't fall far. He looked up, ready to show David around on Monday. Already got his file started in my head. Good, because we're expanding the program. Opening 3 new offices next year. Need someone to oversee all mentorship operations. Marcus stared at him. You mean, executive director of mentorship programs? Charles smiled. If you're interested. Through the ballroom windows, Marcus could see David still talking with Jensen. The same nervous hope in his eyes that Marcus had felt that morning in his driveway, facing a black SUV. One condition, Marcus said. Name it. I still handle some cases personally. Never want to forget what it feels like on the other side of that desk. Charles extended his hand. Deal? Later that night, Marcus stood in his office, looking at the city lights. His father's letter on his desk. His new business cards waiting to be printed. His mother's daily medical report showing all clear. A knock at his door. David. Sir? Just wanted to say thanks for Monday. Even if nothing comes of it. David, Marcus interrupted. A year ago, I was working in a warehouse. Now I'm here. Want to know why? Why? Because when nobody was watching, when nobody was keeping score, I chose to help someone. He nodded toward the chair. Sit down. Tell me your story. Outside his office, the foundation hummed with activity. Sarah training new mentors. Jensen vetting candidates. Dr. Rodriguez revolutionizing their medical programs, a whole system built on the simple idea that kindness matters. Marcus's phone buzzed one last time. His mother, proud of you, baby. Always. He looked at David, saw himself a year ago. Scared, hopeful, ready for change. So, Marcus smiled. Tell me about your mother's medical bills. The circle continued, just like it always would, because sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. And somewhere, an old man with a cane was probably testing someone new.